Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories, so we hope to see you in the community. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited. Today we have Garry Lewis with PowerPlate. Garry, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, who you work with, and what you at PowerPlate do for your clients?
Thanks, Jeff. So my name's Garry. I'm born in Sydney, Australia. Moved into the US about 11 years ago. The last 8 of those years I've been with PowerPlate. I started as a regional sales manager. More recently moved into the role of director of commercial sales. So I'm responsible, our team is responsible for working with chiropractors, physical therapists, fitness centers, studios, multifamily housing facilities, anything fitness related. And we sell product into them for use in their business. So anyone that uses PowerPlate for a business, that's what I'm responsible for. We do have, I do have a number of referrals that come through to me as well, who will purchase direct, but predominantly my business is head of the commercial sales team. I'm also a PowerPlate master trainer. What that is I actually train people through workshops, one-on-ones on how to use the PowerPlate most efficiently and effectively for what the purpose is that they decided to purchase a PowerPlate. It could be because they want to work from home, they just do workouts from home, they have maybe a special condition, some back pain, they could be rehabbing from an injury. So we can help, through any of those sort of scenarios to make their life better, make them move better, feel better, and live better.
I love it. I love it. And we'll get into it a little bit more. How would you describe, for my listeners, some of them may have not heard of PowerPlate, but how would you describe PowerPlate to somebody who's just hearing about it for the first time?
Yeah, if you'd asked me that question 8 years ago, I would have had a very different answer, but we've managed to refine it a little bit. So essentially, PowerPlate is a vibration platform. The plate moves underneath us, which tricks the brain into thinking that you are unstable. So think of being on a wobble board, right? It's moving left and right, and it's causing instability. Well, the PowerPlate vibrates. It's a mechanical device that will vibrate and cause what we call micro hits of ground reaction force. Think of every time we take a step, that's a hit of ground reaction force. The next step, hit of ground reaction force, and then you continue to go faster and faster. The PowerPlate stimulates that at a rate of around 30 times per second. So that then elicits involuntary muscle response. So the muscles will fire to those micro hits of instability, meaning that you're getting muscle contraction. And the immediate benefit is that you start to increase your circulatory system. And we know blood is the lifeline of our body. We need it. It carries all the nutrients that we need to help us in muscle repair, muscle hydration. So it is an ideal modality to really help people who have movement issues, because we can do exercises without a lot of movement and load, which if people have any mobility issues, that's the first problem they have. And traditional fitness equipment requires you to either run hard, lift heavy weights, elevate that heart rate through a bike or a treadmill. Power plate does all of that by just doing simple exercises that we would do on the ground. We do that on the power plate, and it amplifies that exercise by factors of anywhere up to 3 to 5 times more efficient, more effective than if you did that same exercise on the ground. Basically a squat. If you just did a squat, you'd have to move up and down. You could add load by putting, a backpack on or weights across your chest. And with the power plate, you just hold that static position, let the vibration do all the work.
I love it. So for people with mobility issues, that's a huge thing. I have had and have spinal issues, and that's one of the things. A lot of the physio, it's like you got to lift this or do that. It's like, well, we're having some issues just with the core, let alone, how do we lift when it causes intense pain? Now tell me, one of the things I find is that the people who are passionate about something enjoy it and do that thing very well. What drew you to Power Plate, and what excites you about what you're doing in your job today?
Yeah, I've always been a fitness fanatic. I've been a group exercise instructor for over 25 years. I did own a gym back in Australia. I've been involved in fitness programs. So when the opportunity came to work with Power Plate, I saw it as a fit for me because of its utilizing a modality that can be beneficial to everybody. I don't care if you're a 12-year-old, 14-year-old student athlete looking to help with getting faster, getting fitter, getting stronger, all the way up to an 80, 90-year-old person, and anybody in between. So being involved in the fitness industry for so long, being an instructor, one of my biggest passions was being up on stage and being able to have people working together as a group in a fun environment, but still getting the maximum workout. So it was an ideal fit for me.
I love it. Now, one of the things we talk about is wellness, and we talk about, the holistic wellness. So one of the things we ask is for business advice, but I'm happy if you want to adapt that to wellness advice. But what's the best advice you've ever received personally, and how would you say it's impacted you?
Um, Best advice I've received personally is to understand human movement as much as you can. I'm not a human movement specialist, but I have learnt a lot about how the body moves and why certain pain can happen in certain areas that we might be saying, oh, we've got shoulder pain, but the shoulder pain is actually a direct result of our traps, our thoracic spine. So it is all about making sure that are we addressing the correct situations. So I'm available, to always be wanting more and more information and learn more, so I can pass that information on to people to help them move better, feel better, live better.
If I could throw in, Jeff, just a quick thing. When I first saw it, I said, "What's that piece of machine over there?" And then they explained it to me. And then I found out that this lady was coming to town. My plan was, it was a 3-hour workshop, was to go for an hour, get my questions asked, and get the heck out of there. I couldn't fathom sitting for 3 hours. So I go there, and my first question is, why are you 5 times more competition? And she nailed it in about 10 minutes, but I couldn't leave that place. And I looked at my watch and I said, 3 hours is gone? I mean,
Yeah.
she had my attention for 3 hours. And I don't think ever I've sat for 3 hours. I'm ADD and I like to, but I mean, I was captured. And so I was like, how do I order it? How quickly? And I called, she gave me Gary's number, but we got mixed up on email because my email, as you know, Jeff, wasn't too good. But yeah, I mean, it's sitting right over there. I've never seen something so simple to use in my entire life.
and that is so true. And having hosted a number of those workshops myself, I think 3 hours is a long time, but at the end of the 3 hours, I'm trying to get to the end of it because the engagement from the people, because once you understand, and you don't have to be an exercise specialist to understand how vibration works, you just have to have an open mind and go, okay, this actually does this. Because a lot of times people sort of go, it can't do that and that and that. And it's like, well, yes, it can, right? It will increase your circulation. It will increase your metabolism. It is going to increase and activate your lymphatic system. You are going to be able to build strength. You are going to be able to get cardiovascular benefits. It's also going to be suitable if you have Parkinson's and MS, but sometimes that's too much for a lot of people. So we do try to, as look at the person and to see, as I said, if they've had a hip replacement, they've had a surgery of some description, let's just look at how it's going to be beneficial for you there. And then we sort of hone in there. But in the workshop, we go to the whole gamut.
Amazing. It's amazing.
I love that. And thank you for bringing that up, Pete, because I think one of the things a lot of people are looking for, that instant gratification, the silver bullet. And as Garry pointed out, sometimes the pain that expresses itself, the human body has an amazing structure of nerves. If you think about it, and you think, oh, my shoulder hurts. Well, actually, I had something once, I had neck pain, and it turned out it was something in my foot. And so sometimes it's just little things, and I love that advice to learn how we move, because I think sometimes too many athletes, they get focused on the sport, or we get focused on the thing that we're doing, and we're not looking at how does this impact the rest of the structure.
Absolutely. And I'll use an example. I had a shoulder surgery. I had a labral tear. As a recovery from that, they needed to actually sever my bicep off the bone so they could repair the labrum and then reattach the bicep. So during my physical therapy, the first thing I did was said, all right, my physical therapist has to have a power plate. I actually knew one here in Chicago because I sold it to her. And then we went through my physical rehab. And she kept doing things, and I'm like, why are you sticking me with this needle? Why are you cupping me here? Why are you doing this? And she would talk to me all the way through the process. And she goes, well, your shoulder has so many connectors coming in from various parts, through your biceps, through your triceps, through your traps, through your lats, all these sorts of things. So what I'm addressing is the issues that caused the problem, which will then help eliminate the pain and give you greater range of motion. So that really taught me a lot. It's like, okay, I'm understanding my own body, and it really applies with vibration as well. And we would use vibration tools and use a power plate because we wanted to make sure that we were working the whole area. Like, people say, I like the thing is that I have someone touch their toes. I say, can you touch your toes? And they go, oh, not really. So they try to bend down and touch their toes. Within 3 minutes, I can have them increase their range of motion by inches, and they don't understand it. And I said, well, the problem is you're saying your hamstrings are tight, but it's actually not just your hamstrings, it's your entire posterior chain, right? It's the hamstrings, it's the glutes, it's the quads, it's the lower back, it's that entire thoracic spine is all working against each other. So if we can loosen them all up together, you're going to see this immediate 1 to 2 inches of increased range of motion with a couple of minutes. And then we call that our little wow factor. And literally, I've had people do dances because they're like, I haven't touched my toes in 20 years. But I could touch my toes after doing 2, 3, 4 minutes of simple, basic, what we already know. One-legged hamstring stretch, hip flexor stretch, a couple of in a thigh stretch, a couple of these things. All of a sudden, everything is loosened up, and then they go, and fingers are touching the ground.
Excellent. I can throw a story on stretching. So my left side is not moving very much. So you shower and you're trying to put your left leg on your right to do some general things. I never used to be able to keep it on there. It always slide right off until I used the power plate. Now it sits up there like it's normal. I have such increased range of motion in just that one motion. It's incredible. It's like nothing ever happened. It sits up there without falling, and it's incredible. I love it.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Pete. And by the way, this is going to be fun because we can talk about, the intentions of Power Plate, and then we can talk about how Pete's experiencing it. Now, I believe I've seen this a lot in fitness. One of the things that makes me cringe is when you get an unqualified instructor teaching you how to use a piece of equipment. What are some of the big mistakes you see a client making or trainers making that could, if we could fix that, the personal wellness journey would go faster? So you mentioned, for example, a couple of quick things to increase mobility. What are some things people can be avoiding so that they have a better outcome with Power Plate?
Yeah, the common thing that I see when I speak with trainers, even physical therapists and chiropractors, is that they want to overcomplicate it, right? It's not complicated.
Yes.
So I had a chiropractor call me up and he's like, all right, I want you to send me protocols for using Power Plate with my patients. I'm like, not happening. And he's like, why? You guys are the specialist. I said, no, I'm the vibration specialist. You're the chiropractor.
Yeah.
You know your client. You know the conditions. You know the history. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to educate you on why vibration is good and how it works and how it interacts with human movement. And you're going to apply that knowledge to your knowledge of being a chiropractor and helping fix your client. So no, I'm not going to give you protocols. And they go, but what should I do on it? I'm like, so tell me some of the things that you already do with your clients when they come in. And they go, well, I have them do this, this, and this. I'm like, great. Just do that on the Power Plate.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, and I'm like, yes, because you're going to activate a lot more muscle fiber at a faster rate than you could do it on the ground, which is going to stimulate that blood flow and circulatory system to start to really get into those microcapillaries, really help with that muscle hydration. So stop complicating it and take what you do, just do it on the Power Plate. And it's almost like a light goes on. I do the same with personal trainers when I'm talking with them. I'm like, so you know your client and you know your client's goals. Are you going to be, if their goal is to run a marathon, is it beneficial for them to do 400 push-ups? Right? You've got to look at what it is that they're wanting to achieve, or if they're wanting to increase their mobility, flexibility, and stability, which ultimately you increase those three things, you improve their ability. I said it could be that we need to just work slowly through the whole body, and we can do that through whole body vibration and Power Plate because of the amount of muscle contractions we receive during that exercise, that without putting that load on their body. So that's the number one thing. Don't overcomplicate it. And we've simplified it. We have a lot of videos on our website and our app that are all free of charge. There's 10, 20, 30 minutes. It's like, okay, just do one of the programs. Have a look at that. And then the rest will start to fall into place, right? And really the number one thing about with Power Plate is people will experience this vibrational travel up into their head, and people attest to this. People go up to a Power Plate, they see a green button and they press it. Now, of course, the plate starts and all of a sudden the plate is vibrating, and then it travels and it comes up into their face and head. And they go, oh, it shook my brain. And I'm like, well, if it shook your brain, we've got bigger issues, but we won't go into that. No, what happened was you experienced something that you haven't experienced before. So then I change their position just slightly. I have them bend their knees a little bit, and then it goes away. And then they go, oh, that's better. I'm like, yes. So if you stand straight up, and think of this, I always like to use my little analogy, everybody at home, think of a piece of steel, right? I got a nice long piece of steel, and I hit one end of it with an object. What will happen, you can actually feel vibration travel up that piece of steel and will fall off the end. Now, if I take that same piece of steel and I put a 45-degree angle bend in it, I hit it again, right? There's going to be vibration travel up. It's going to get to the bend. Some of it will go around the bend, but the rest of it will actually turn around and come back. So think of us in a squat position, slight squat position. We're now that our bones are now that piece of steel, but we now have joints in to allow us to go down. So the vibration now is being isolated into the lower part of the body, getting the effect that we need to activate involuntary muscle contractions in quads, hamstrings, glutes, and lower back. So, but then when you stand up, then you then release the vibration to travel. It gets to your head, right? Unless we chop off the top of your head, the vibration is just going to stay there, right? So that's really the big thing. People go, oh, and I'm like, yes. And it takes a little bit of getting, that first experience takes a little bit of getting used to. But your body
5 minutes, that's about it.
It only takes 5 minutes. And a nice analogy I like to use there is that, I ask a lot of people, have you ever used an electric toothbrush? And they go, yeah. And I go, yeah, when you first put it in your mouth, and I'm sorry for the people at home, it'll sound like, and it just felt so weird in your face. But 3 days later, you're like, whatever. Yeah. Right? That's just your body adapting. Does. If it felt weird to start with, give it a little bit of time. It'll go away.
I love it. And I think I'd like to echo that, to the practitioners, keep it simple. You're doing what you were going to do anyways. You just have a new tool. I think that's probably worth underlining and highlighting. Now, one of the things we like to do on the show is we like to give people quick wins or steps they can take. What are a couple of tips you would give people listening to the show where they can go and improve themselves and their personal wellness journey today? How can they leverage PowerPlate with some quick wins?
First of all, you got to ask yourself, what am I? Again, I go back to that. What do I want? What am I looking to? Am I looking to improve my stability, my flexibility? I've got really bad knees, and I'm starting to put on a little bit more weight. We want to look at those sorts of things. So 5 to 10 minutes, 3 times a week, very basic, simple exercises. And we talk about a squat, maybe a lunge, a couple of stretches, some crunches and dips. Things that we could normally do at home around the house, we can just do that on the PowerPlate, and your wins you're going to see results a lot quicker than what you would see by traditional exercises because of this. And I can't emphasize enough, this rapid involuntary muscle contraction. We're talking at a rate of 30 times per second. There is nothing on the planet that can actually achieve that amount of muscle contraction without doing, you just can't do it. It has to be done mechanically, right? So that is the most simplest thing. But if you're looking to try a PowerPlate, you want to, if you're close to a Lifetime Fitness and you can get yourself a weekly pass or something, right? They'll all have PowerPlates there. Go and try them out. Ask the trainer to give you a little bit of guidance, or Equinox, or you can go to our website and there's a locator page there that we will be updating within the next month to be a lot more accurate, that you can maybe find somewhere close by where you live to just go and try it out, or reach out to us directly and we'll give you some details later on and we can lead you in the right direction.
Gary, can I jump in, Jeff, just for a second? I found one thing that I don't like. Can I bring that up?
Absolutely.
We've heard the one phrase, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
That's
This
right.
is too good to be true, and it's true. It absolutely rocks. I mean, my swelling on my ankle goes down. I mean, it's like I can't find anything that I don't like. Simple to use. I actually look forward to working out, where before I wasn't a big gym guy, but I did do a routine. I didn't look forward to it, but I look forward to the results. I look forward to doing the actual exercises that they designed for me at the PT.
Yeah.
It's fun, and your results, man. It's like, I know it's not a best kept secret, because you guys have been doing it for a number of years, but when everybody I talk to has been doing it for like 15 years, 19 years, 20 years, you just don't do something that long if it doesn't work.
And that's very correct. And one of the reasons why people actually enjoy working out on the power plate, and just for those at home, there's nothing that's going to come out of my mouth that I cannot back up with science, right? We have the research. So I do have research to back up everything I say. Is the number one thing it does is a couple of things that it does is it lowers our cortisol. For those who are not familiar, cortisol is the stress hormone in our body, right? And as our cortisol levels rise, our stress levels rise. The other thing it does is it stimulates more endorphins, and endorphins are the happy drug. So if you can cortisol, increase your endorphins, you just have to feel good, right?
Yeah.
So people, this is a real funny story. I have lots of stories. I was at a show, it's a number of years ago, and we had a couple of plates there, and this lady comes up to me and says, I have a power plate at home, and since I've been here, I've missed it. Can I, use it? I'm like, go for it, right? So she went over. I was talking to somebody else, and a couple of minutes later, I heard this, and I turned around, and it's so true. Here's the lady standing on the plate, straight-legged. I remember I just told you not to do that, bend the knees a little bit. Straight-legged. She's got her arms out like she's across, right? Standing there, and she's going, and I walked over to her and I said, is this how you use your power plate at home? She goes, yep, I do it 3 times a day for 5 minutes and I feel awesome. I'm like, good on you. See ya. And walked away. I'm like, it's not up to me to tell her that it's not, she could get better benefits. She loved the fact of how she felt after doing 5 minutes of just standing there on the plate, getting that blood stimulated, getting those muscles contracting. She's going to get a better result if she bends the knees a little bit. But anyway, but that's what happened. Her cortisol level dropped, her endorphins rose, and she just said, I just feel so great once I get off this thing.
That's I see this in airports and hotel lobbies. If you're traveling and you're all tense from being on the plane, wouldn't it be nice if you could just have a drop in where you could stand there for 5 minutes and elevate your endorphins? I think that's really cool.
That's definitely a market. It's a challenge for us because a lot of the people who operate these businesses really are not from a wellness background, right? So, but we've worked with a number of hotels, and we do product in some of their fitness centers, but we are working with a couple of the larger chains that are looking at doing premium rooms that will have like a Peloton, they'll have a power plate, it'll have some, have maybe a mirror or a tonal in there, that they've got their own personal space. So it is an excellent opportunity for people who travel. I've been traveling all day, cooped up in a plane, sitting in a car. You can get into your room. You can do you can go 10-15 minutes on your Peloton, do some stretching and some resistance based work on a power plate. So it definitely does fit perfectly into that category.
I love it. Well, Gary, we're almost out of time, but a couple of questions. First of all, if people want to learn more about PowerPlate, what's the best place or best way for them to follow you or get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is via my email. My email is Garry. Now, Garry has two R's in it. GARRY.Lewis, LEWIS, at powerplate.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Now, this is a conversation. Is there anything I should have asked you about PowerPlate that I haven't?
Look, maybe this is always a fun fact. How did vibration start? Right. So we go back to the beginning, and this is a true story. Is that if we go back to the 1960s, as the Russians and Americans were in a space race, right? Who could go the furthest? Who could stay up there the longest? But it wasn't about the equipment that they were using to get into space. It was about the people who was inside that rocket ship. And there was this magic number of 100 days. 100 days in zero gravity means you have severe muscle atrophies, right? So imagine if someone was in a coma for 100 days and their muscles are just not working. Muscles are basically use them or lose them. So they would have severe muscle atrophy and they would have severe bone density loss. So the Russians actually worked out that if we could create a mechanical device that they would literally strap the astronauts down so they became in contact with this plate, and it would stimulate these muscles to contract. It would also help with bone density, because making sure that the bone mineral is being activated through getting bone compression through resistance-based work, that they were able to extend from 100 days to 180, sometimes up to 190 days in space. So that's a pretty interesting story, and the reality is that's how it started, was that it was happening back in the 60s during the space race.
I love that. And, it's funny because I've seen the commercials. They had human beings in gyms. They were hooked up to what looked like a giant belt sander. And, it was kind of primitive beginnings, but it's fascinating to see now the compactness of the device.
Correct. And I get that question asked a lot. Oh, I remember back in the 70s, there was this belt that used to go around you and it used to jiggle you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I remember. I said, I'm old enough to remember that as well. And the reality of it is that actually it did work. Not a lot.
Yeah.
There was benefit in there because it was stimulating, right? This movement was being stimulated by this belt, which would cause the muscles in the abdominals and in the back to actually activate. And if you get muscles to activate, they start to work a little harder, right? So that it would work. This is a little bit different, being, a mechanical device that we stand on. We do push-ups, crunches, lunges, dips, any sort of basic exercise. But the concept is there, right? It was there.
I love it. And I really
Can I get
want
a quick question in before you
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Pete.
So, Gary, this is just for FYI for me. So one of the therapists left and went physio or physical.
Yep.
I think that big. Do they currently have plates in all their location? Do you know?
So the two biggest physical therapists in the company are Athletico and it's not Physico. There's a Physical is another one. That's a smaller chain. What tends to happen with, and this is no disrespect, and a lot of physical therapists will agree with this, is that their business model is very cookie cutter, right? If you have a shoulder injury, we want you to do this, 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 and this, right?
Yep.
They have very limited equipment available to them, right? Because they operate on a get in, get out, get in, get out, right? And they know that when you get a prescription from your doctor, right, for physical therapy, it usually is a time period. You're going to get X amount of sessions, and those sessions, now they know that most people do not complete the full sessions, right? And the reason being is because they're not really giving them anything to come back, right? So getting into those larger box chains has been a challenge for us. We still continue to try, and I worked with one large chain here in the Chicagoland area, and we come up with an excellent package and concept, but the guy says, no, I want to pay 1/4 of that. I'm like, but we're giving you a price that is close enough to our cost price just so we could get in the door, demonstrate the benefits of it. And he's like, no, that's too expensive. And I'm like,
That
okay.
guy said in
Yeah,
mining,
that's it's the people who work in private practice, who work in smaller, more progressive physical therapists that really buy into vibration technology and how it can benefit them. But it's also about the physical therapist. The demand on a physical therapist is high, right? Having to be sort of active, range of motion, like doing, right? If you can take some of the hands-on work out of the therapist's hands,
yes,
it means that
yes,
they're going to actually be more productive because they're not overworked. They're not
yes,
themselves having to need physical
totally
therapists.
agree.
So that's one of the that's one of the things that we present to them, is that, you know, if try to think about how we can take you out of the equation, all right, and let the vibration be your savior.
And for me, it's a deal breaker because the lady that was headed up, was in charge of a clinic, left to go to physio. And so I'm looking around, and I won't go to a PT unless they have power play, because I want their expertise, but I also want their power play.
Yep. That's a very big thing. And look, we're starting to see some more physical therapists, and their interest level is starting to grow a lot more. But you know, it's most of these businesses operate, you know, very, very tight budgets, and so they have to, you know, putting in, you know, equipment like a power plate. Like, well, power plate's not cheap, right? If you look at versus other modalities within a physical therapist practice, but it is a product that they're going to have for 10, 12 years. It's not something that you need to replace every 3 years, right?
I know what I paid. If you told me, hey, Pete, I'm taking it away, and you was charging me much to take it away, I'd say, no, you can't have it. I'm going to keep it because it's that good. It's that important to the development, and it's so easy that I can't imagine life without it. It's so good.
Well, and I think I'm going to chime in that if you, as a therapist, whatever your modality is, if you can ensure your patients are getting results and they're doing the thing you're asking them to do, that's huge. Now, Garry, we have time for one more question, so I'm going to make this very pointed. I've seen way too many, you know, my background is an accountant. I've seen a lot of physiotherapists who wash out of the industry, and this applies to anybody that has that, you know, physical hands-on, like
Manual
massage therapy.
manipulation, as we like to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I laugh, and it's kind of funny but sad. You see a lot of those people themselves ending up in therapy and trying to be better patients than the rest of us. But you know, when you talk about the price of a power plate, I can't help but think that there's some science, some math somewhere where if you look at the longevity of the practitioner, I know people in their 30s that can't do the thing that they were trained to do because of the manual. You know, I've seen a lot of carpal tunnel, for example.
Yeah.
Are you
And
starting to see any trends in that space?
it's look, it's what it's how we present power play to them. So if I'm speaking with a physical therapist, there's 3 things that I want to help them with. I want to help them with fatigue. I want to take away as much of the manual manipulation that you can and use the power plate to do that, right? The next thing is income, right? They're looking for referrals. So if you can get your clients to be walking out of here singing from the rooftop about your business, right? The first thing that when I was having my shoulder rehab, people were, how's it going? Who's your physical therapist? Oh, Lisa Jersky. I tell you, I'll give her a number. She is fantastic. That's what people want. Business today is social media. Like if someone reaches out, can anybody refer somebody? So people will sing from the rooftops. So your referral business will go through the roof if you do the right thing.
Yep.
And then the final component is an ancillary revenue opportunity, which they don't understand, is because people who are using power rehab become addicted to it, just like Pete is, and they're like, I want more of this, right? And they go, well, you have the opportunity to come back here and book some time and pay cash money for utilizing the power plate when I'm not using it, so we can coordinate. So there's this opportunity income. So there's 3 reasons they should get it, right? And it's just a matter of going, yeah, tick, that's right, tick, that's right, tick, that's right, no brainer, let's go.
I love that. And I think that's a huge thing because a lot of our audience on their own wellness journey will be the practitioners. And I think that's, there's no shame in finding the modern tools that can help you grow that revenue stream, can make you more referable, and quite frankly, give you a longer career. So, Garry, I really, you and we could chat for hours, but I want to be mindful of your time. So I want to thank you for taking the time to hang out with Pete and I today.
Look, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. And I hope that the listeners out there have learned something. And, if they please feel free to reach out to me. And, if you've got a question, you have my email, throw any question at me. I'll be happy to answer it.
Thank you, Garry.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.